happening?
Season 3 premiere of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Let's fucking go.
I'm Nicole Nixon. I'm a journalist in Sacramento.
And I'm Julia Ritchie, a journalist in Nashville.
And together we are obsessed with the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City franchise.
It's true. We both used to live and work in Salt Lake City, and we did promise each other, if you remember, Nicole, that we would do this one day.
We did promise, and today that promise is finally being fulfilled. 3 seasons in.
Yeah, it only took us 3 years. Last week on the season 3 premiere, we opened with this super ominous flashback that I thought was pretty well produced, actually. It has Jen describing her direct response marketing business, which we now know is this big scam that could land her in a federal prison soon. So let's get down to business, shall we?
We're rolling.
What I've done for the last 20 years is direct response marketing. I make millions. Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do for money. I'm like the Wizard of Oz.
Do you think that the producers went through all their old tape and gave, like, federal investigators any of those clips of her talking about her business?
I do wonder, because you remember when Coach Shah later in this episode says that we need to go and sift through all the documents and go to New York and meet with our pretrial attorneys. And I was like, what are all these materials that they have to go over? And I'm like, what if it's just footage from like season 1 of...
And I loved that Jen was just like, yeah, we have so much to do.
But let me...
like, she's clearly not really involved in any of it.
But let me plan this party first.
I know.
Yeah. There are some cast members that did not make it to the season 3 premiere. So we should pour one out for Mary Cosby, who decided to leave the franchise at the end of season 2. I think she'd had enough scrutiny of her church. And
just such a shame because it was just getting good there, huh?
Yeah, I feel like they were about to break that one open too.
I know. Well, fingers crossed they still do.
And then also Jenny had to leave after some unfortunate Facebook posts were unearthed that revealed that perhaps she was not as progressive as she portrayed herself to be on the show.
And I think more than Jenny, we will all miss her little girl, whose name I actually forgotten now. But that's okay, because kids on reality TV is probably not great.
Sketchy, yeah. I did like Jenny on the show, but I think as we've learned from multiple Real Housewives that the people on the show aren't necessarily the people they are off the show. Mm-hmm. But
and no one's gonna miss her weird husband either.
Oh God, he was terrible. Continuing a long legacy of terrible Real Housewives husbands, though. Mm-hmm. So it seems, Nicole, that Lisa and Meredith's friendship or lack of friendship or whatever the hell you want to call it, enemyship, will dominate this season's storyline. Tell me what you think of... So to recap, at the end of season 2, Lisa gets very mad and goes into a room to vent, and she apparently
still mic'd though. Hot mic.
This is some journalism 101 right here. She did not take off her mic and started just ranting like a crazy person, like about Meredith, and said some pretty astonishing things, calling her a whore and saying that she couldn't afford a house. And anyways, Meredith, I think rightly, was upset by it. Mm-hmm. And now the two are barely speaking. So I guess my question for you is, like, you heard like Meredith met up with Jen in the pool at the beginning of this season.
Fashion moment, by the way. Sorry. Her swimsuit, hot pink swimsuit. I just love that it had like the buttons on the sides of like every blazer she's ever owned. It was just very Meredith, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, we should find out who makes her clothing.
There is a Real Housewives of Salt Lake City fashion Instagram. Ooh. And they will often post their outfits and like where to find them. Not that we could afford them.
I did feel a little bit, I don't know. I mean, a lot of this, I know that there are scripted portions of these shows, but Meredith was never really the gossip of this group. And this season, she's starting to like drop little things about Lisa's character and Lisa's company, and saying that she's heard rumors that Lisa's marriage is on the rocks. And I didn't know if it felt a little out of character for her.
I feel like Meredith is fully embracing her like ice queen villain persona.
Yeah, it seems like either she was told to do that by the producers of the show, or she actually is like, I've had it with all of you bitches, and I'm just...
I feel like last season when she was soaking in the bathtub for like 4 hours with a glass of champagne after Jen was arrested, she was like just reconsidering her life and being like, you know, this isn't so bad. You know, I can get off on this a bit.
I think she had a little of this like self-righteous when they go low, I go high.
Totally.
Last season, and now it seems like that is not going to be happening anymore.
She had the taste, and now she's just full blown going with it.
Yeah, she's like, Vita Tequila is bankrupt.
And also, she is like a woman hurt and scorned by her so-called best friend who did not apologize to her for like 2 months, and I think she's very hurt by that. So
yeah, and still didn't apologize to her husband.
Oh no!
Yeah, in this episode.
She was just like, "Oh, I'd love to talk at some point." Lisa was, and Meredith was like, "Okay." And then she went and talked and apologized to Seth right behind her. That was so awkward at Sharif's party.
It was, but completely on brand for Lisa Barlow.
Oh, totally.
Okay, so that is going to be one of the main dominant themes. I think the other thing is Jin Shah going to jail, because this was filmed before her trial date in March, but didn't it get pushed? I should have done some research before we started recording.
It did get pushed, I think, to the summer, like June maybe is when she pled guilty.
So we're just gonna have to see her freaking out about going to jail, but she's still out, out on bond or whatever they call it.
Out and about, and she did downsize to a 4,500 square foot house.
I could not,
like 3 times the size of my house.
I was gonna say my house in Salt Lake City was 900 square feet. So
yeah,
she was complaining about her
and
closet.
I know, but still throwing parties just at someone else's house.
I should admit that I have been a Jin Shah apologist since season 1, because I do think that she tries really hard. I find that like her joy is kind of infectious, even though I do think she's probably committed wire fraud and other financial crimes.
I appreciate that, but I cannot be an apologist for defrauding
elderly people.
Old elderly people.
Understood. That's a good ethical line to draw. I think I'm getting there with her, especially after this latest like Harlem party, which we should talk about briefly. So, they, so Coach Sharif is turning 51, and even though he seems to hate being on the show, she constantly continues to throw parties for her husband. And
does he also get paid for being on the show? Because she has a lot of debt now.
I think that's probably why we're seeing more of him this season, is they're like, we've got to pay these legal bills. So anyway, she's going to throw him this party for his 51st birthday that's Harlem themed, because he loves Harlem.
He loves the movie Harlem Nights, which I've never seen, so I was a little confused. But it looked very fun.
Okay, that was my bad. I guess I missed the part of like that it was based off a movie. But it also just was like they had a flapper themed party in that.
Oh yeah, in season 1 at that burlesque bar,
right,
which was very fun. If you're ever in Salt Lake, hit it up.
Oh, you've been there?
Can't even remember what it's called, but it's right by Fashion Place
Isn't
Mall.
it Prohibition?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, I just feel like we're getting a little too much 1920s cosplay with this cast and crew.
Mm-hmm. They just love to like get dressed up in old glam, I guess. I don't know.
We should unpack that on another episode of like.
You should.
A B plot in this episode was Whitney's quitmormon.com?
.org.
Sorry, I don't.
I think
we should. We should.
It's
probably,
a number.
Are we supposed to be promoting the website? Anyways, Whitney has decided that she wants to leave the church, which is something that I didn't know what that was because we should say you are a former Mormon, and I am not. So I've learned a lot about Mormonism from this show, but also just living in Salt Lake City. And and I didn't know that even if you stop going to church, you are still on their like rolls. They're like
correct.
Yeah. And
they have you on a list forever until you say, or apparently now you have to get a lawyer involved until you say, here's my lawyer, please take me off your rolls. Or they excommunicate you.
Yeah.
Which is like a whole thing.
So was that a big deal, did you think?
I actually was surprised to learn that Whitney was still officially a Mormon. I thought she had left like years ago because she talked about, marrying her husband, Justin, and like all the stuff with her family. So I was just like, oh, like she obviously is inactive. She probably left. Or was excommunicated when she married her husband or whatever.
Well, that's what I thought. I was like, so if you're excommunicated for, breaking the rules like she did, you're not taken off the rolls, even if you're excommunicated?
You are taken off the rolls if you're excommunicated, but you have to, excommunication is very, sometimes they excommunicate you, and sometimes they, see what you're doing, and they're just like, man, whatever.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
And then I was also surprised that Heather had not gone that route yet.
Oh, I was not surprised at all that Heather is still active, like a member officially. I was surprised with, when Whitney brought her down and was like, I have the papers, I'm on quitmormon.org, and the camera panned to Heather, and her face was, slacked, she was so shocked. She could not believe what she was saying. I was shocked at Heather being so shocked that Whitney was officially going to leave. I was like, why is Heather... that showed me, Heather came out with this book about being a bad Mormon. Heather's had this storyline of being, Mormon but not living it. Mm-hmm. And so to see her, shocked that Whitney was going to finally actually officially leave, I was like, wow. That showed me that Heather, her journey to leave, if she ever does, is going to be way harder and tougher than I originally thought.
Yeah, I think that's right, is that it showed this gulf and that's what I really like about the show is there are different cast members on different journeys with their faith, not just Mormonism, but a lot of it Mormonism. So yeah, I had also thought that Heather was a lot further along, or at least maybe at the same point as Whitney, and it seems like they're not at the same point at all.
Right. Which is so, I mean, I don't know. It's just interesting to me the different, like you said, the different, journeys people can take. Because on the one hand, I don't know, Mormonism, as somebody who grew up Mormon, it's so, there's so much about, it's so performative. So to me, if Heather is, able to drink alcohol on a national TV show and, talk about her sex life and her divorce and all this stuff, that to me is she doesn't care. She is on her way out for sure. But I don't know.
But there's this. Yeah, that thing about that she doesn't talk to her mother, but that this maybe gives her one tether to her. That is so painful to hear.
And yeah.
If you've ever had a family member that you feel very isolated from but you still love them because they're your blood and you're I think that's why people have always felt that Heather was the fan favorite, is because her struggles feel very relatable.
And I totally understand where she's coming from with not wanting to disappoint your family and not wanting to hurt them and not wanting to give up any, especially if you have a if her relationship with her family is, and we saw some of that in the last season at her dad's graveside.
Yeah.
And her mom, not attending or just doing a drive-by. Yeah, that's hard. And so I really hope this season we get to explore that with Heather.
Yeah, and I think could be queuing up the drama that they foreshadowed in the opening sequence that...
Oh, with Whitney and Heather.
Yes, I honestly think that this could be a sort of undercurrent. So this is a good segue to our wishes for this season. We were going to record this before we watched the first episode, but I kind of think it's better now that we have a little primer,
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to start with, I would like to see Vida Tequila's distillery in Mexico that Meredith has totally maligned and said apparently does exist, but that Lisa and her husband have never visited. So I'd like to make sure that the workers at this plant in Mexico are doing okay. and that it does in fact exist. So that is one wish for me this season.
Let's see. For me, this is more of a prediction that I actually really hope comes to pass. I hope that Meredith and Seth come out as being in an open relationship already.
Wow.
Like, I have no reason to really believe that, but I think it explains a lot of what we heard last season, a lot of like what Lisa was ranting about.
Oh, and it's funny because I had this on here that I was like, man, I'm so tired of Seth. I really, now that Jenny and her husband are gone, like, I think Seth is like just, he's just so annoying to me.
So cringy.
Yeah, very cringy and just, man, I was like, I hate that they swapped out Brooks, her son, for her husband.
I know. At least Brooks had some like entertainment value and like good one-liners. That's just annoying.
He could deliver a one-liner, and that, I respect that. But yeah, I guess I don't have as many wishes other than I hope that we haven't met any of the new cast members, but I think I hope that they aren't racist. So that's my third wish.
I saw a rumor that who was Angie?
Yeah.
Her name is also Angie.
Yeah.
So maybe there will be two Angies, but I saw a rumor like a year ago that the Angie whose house they were at for the party would become a cast member, but maybe not.
Yeah.
And then I did see Angie Harrington posting a lot on Instagram that she'll be on this season. My one last wish for this season is that and I know it won't come true, but I wish we follow the thread again of Mary's creepy church, even though she's not on this show anymore.
I did think, I was like, it'd be great if we could just have a little like check-in with her. Maybe she can come on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen and just like talk shit about all her
So
cast.
actually, this came up in the Watch What Happens Live also. Andy asked if either of them have heard from Mary since the reunion, and Lisa said that she got a text from Mary while she was driving, and it was like this long text, and Lisa was like, I took too long to respond because I was driving, and she took it all back. So by the time Lisa finally got to read the text, it was like, you're mean, like, never mind, you're the worst person ever, like horrible things like that.
Well, this has been awesome. I'm so glad we're doing this. We'll talk more next week. And I guess we are calling this podcast Disengaging. Is that okay?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay.
Especially since Meredith is going to be
She'll be engaging.
I know, maybe we should call this Engage. Oh, I don't know.
We'll rank each episode on how engaged we are with it. This episode of Disengaging is produced by me, Julia Ritchie.
And me, Nicole Nixon.
Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. And if you are an RHOSLC fan and you like what you hear, please help spread the word far and wide. And if you don't, please keep it to yourself.
Bye.
Bye. I have you starting.
Shit. I'm not ready. Okay. How over the top do I need to be?
I mean, it does not matter. There'll be like 10 people listening to this. So
okay, it's true. All right.
But one of them will be Ben Winslow. So we need to impress Ben.
Okay.